Jan returned with the little Trippins to find their parents seated on boxes, both looking solemnly ahead of them as if they were in church on Sunday, their attention held by a gentleman who was leaning on the mantelpiece. It was Mr. Laxton. Jan stood there feeling stupid and embarrassed as Mr. Trippin ushered his little family out of the room. Mr. Laxton was already talking. "I owe you an apology, Jan. I underestimated you." Whatever Jan had been expecting to hear, this was most definitely not it. Mr. Laxton's kindness floored him. He looked up and was amazed to see genuine concern in his tired face. Finally, Jan said what he'd thought he would never admit to anyone, least of all to Mr. Laxton. "I bitterly regret leaving as I did. I thought you'd be better off without me." "You could not be more mistaken if you tried. I've been out all night looking for you. Mrs. Laxton called me a gypsy. She meant no harm by it. She's as desperate as I am for you to come home." Jan felt as if he stood at a crossroads. One path he knew well, and one appeared too dimly lit for him to see where it led. Looking at the two of them, he knew which one he was going to take. "I will try my best not to let you down, sir." "Good. That's all anyone can do," said Mr. Laxton, looking mightily relieved. "Then we have an understanding." Before Jan could say another word, the door burst open and Mr. Trippin entered, his arms spread out wide.
"At last the tide has turned. A wise decision, sir,"
he said, violently shaking Jan's hand.
"A wise decision."
Jan looked baffled, and Mr. Laxton said, "I took the opportunity of asking Mr. Trippin to be one of your tutors."
"Will that suit, sir?"
said Mr. Trippin, looking anxiously at Jan.
"If it won't, I will not force the point. It would gladden the heart of Touchstone to be of help to a fellow thespian. Clowns are often wiser than the cleverest of men. Not for nothing do jesters keep kings company."
Jan burst out laughing. "And you can get the furniture back." "It's already settled," said Mr. Laxton. "Then," said Jan, "it will suit very well indeed." The Marquis de Villeduval's response to the growing political turmoil in France was to build a garden, surrounded by a high wall designed to enhance the beauty of his new chateau. As part of the grand plan, the Marquis ordered the removal of a small, inconvenient hill that blocked the view from the chateau. The farmers, whose wheat fields he had confiscated, came cap in hand to beg him to leave it be. It was a sacred mound. To disturb it would mean spoiled crops, diseased animals, ruin and starvation. This was not the first time a peasant delegation had annoyed him with saints and superstitions. The same thing had happened when he cleared the forest round his chateau in Normandy to make way for a park. That time they had warned him not to touch the ancient trees that belonged to the spirits of the earth and were guarded by the gypsies. They said that misfortune would overtake him if he cut down a single one. The Marquis was determined to clear his land of the gypsies, whom he held solely responsible for these nonsensical ideas. So one winter's day he set off in pursuit of them, with a group that included Count Kaliowski. The party soon came across a gypsy family fleeing through the woods. The Marquis had thought to have them rounded up and transported. The Count, however, had an altogether more immediate solution. The Marquis, who had not quite the Count's taste for blood, watched from a respectable distance, and the servants looked on in horror as Kaliowski personally killed each and every one with less mercy than he would have shown a fox. The dead bodies were left hanging in the trees like grotesque baubles, an example to all those who put store in old wives' tales, instead of having a proper respect for reason and authority. The cost of his new paradise would bring the Marquis to financial ruin, something he chose to ignore. The task of telling him the true state of his financial affairs fell to the long-suffering Maître Tardieu, trusted advisor to the Ville-Duval family for over 30 years. After the old Marquis's death, he had watched with growing dismay as the family's fortune was mercilessly squandered. And now it seemed that the day of reckoning had arrived.